traction control. So you're seeing 2 buttons light up there when we put you in that track mode. 2 of these are lighting up. Most people right away are like, oh, you're turning everything off. It's not turning everything off. But if you were just to hold that center button down with the squiggly lines on it, that will turn on the traction control button. And that controls the rear wheels only. That's only traction to the rear wheels. That doesn't have anything to do with the Stabilitrak or active handling. Why would you want to turn it off? People usually ask that. I mean, the main reason is to do an awesome burnout. Also, what people use it for actually works. Most people don't use their cars in areas like that. But if you get like stuck in a little bit of sand or wet grass or mud or snow, if you want to rock the car back and forth a little bit, it helps if you get like spin the wheels up. If you can't spin the wheels, it'll just kind of sit there and fight itself. So that's one reason to use it. Burnout is really not another reason to do it. So you push the center button one time to turn it on or off, and you'll see that light come on and off. It can be turned on, off or on at any time and in any mode. While you're out driving, you can push that button as many times as you want. That light will come on, come off, come on, come off, come on, come off. Turning off traction control does not turn off Stabilitrak. So there's another light you see there. Oops. The other light you see there over on the left side of the dash with the squiggly lines, that's the Stabilitrak, the active handling on the car. And that controls yaw, or when a car starts stepping out on you, when the car's sliding this way, back and forth this way, that's what it controls. And it's using a lot of different sensors, wheel speed sensors, ABS sensors, throttle, etc. to straighten. It's basically trying to straighten that car out. Whatever way it needs to, it might grab a little brake here, it might slow the wheel down here. It's trying its best to try to straighten that car out. So keeps the car on the intended trajectory by monitoring steering input on the wheel sensors, throttle input, G-loads, yaw sensors, and brake sensors. So it's kind of looking at all this stuff, and it's seeing what you're doing with the car too, and it's going to step in for you and try to straighten that car out. So as we work our way through the drive modes, so tour mode is a default setting for everyday driving. That's when you turn the car on, and you see that blue T right there. That's in touring mode. The suspension is going to be at its softest. The magnetic ride is going to be at its softest. The steering is going to have the most assist. It'll be the easiest to turn the wheel. I mean, I know some of this is redundant for you guys, but the throttle tip-in will be a lot softer. Like you might notice that the car feels lazier when it's in touring mode. It doesn't have less power. That's one of the myths. Oh, you got to put it in track mode. You gain 60 horsepower, all this stuff. That has nothing to do with it. It's just the percentage of throttle tip-in that it's telling the computer or the throttle body. So it's real soft in touring mode, so the car doesn't lurch on you. And as you move, and then the instrument cluster also looks differently right now. When we run ours, they're in track mode, so that's why you're seeing that the track display on there. That's copied from the C7Rs. As you move across through, sport mode is for spirited road driving. So now the dash is going to look a little bit differently. It pulls up these pocket gauges. It's going to tell you what gear you're in, etc. Now car starts adjusting for you. It starts tightening up the suspension. You'll feel it ride a little bit stiffer. The magnetic ride is getting stiffer. It's starting to take away some of the power assist on the steering, so you get a little bit more feedback from the road, a little bit harder to steer the car. The throttle tip-in is getting a little bit more aggressive. And on the automatics, it'll start changing the shift points. It'll hang onto a gear a little bit longer. It'll rev up a little higher before it'll shift. And it also, if you ask for downshifts, it'll downshift as many times as it can. It won't set the car right under the rev limiter. But if you're cruising on the highway and you ask for 3 downshifts, it's going to downshift 3 times. So it's monitoring all that stuff for you. So spirited road driving. Track mode, so that's what the dash is looking like in our cars, of course. Intended for track use only. So a lot of people ask, like, well, why can't I put it in track mode on the street? You're totally welcome to. You can. You probably won't get to those limits on the street unless it's a road, you know, like the back of your hand, and it's smooth. That's the main reason we kind of recommend not using it, is because it's pretty easy. You hear about wheels getting bent and cracked in these cars. It's pretty easy to bend the wheel. If you hit, like if you smack a pothole in track mode, the suspension's pretty stiff. It can bend the wheel, so it's not really worth it. It's not like you're racing out there and you're, you know, at the limit 10 tenths in the car. So usually doesn't play out too well for you, but you know, it's there. Also, I'm getting the PTMs. If you guys have had C7s, you notice that weather mode is gone and eco mode is gone on the ZR1. Okay, so now into the performance traction management. So that's the button in the center, and once you're in track, it's only available to you when you're in track mode, you'll notice. So when you scroll the mode selector over to track mode and you double tap the center, you'll see this bubble pop up like you guys have been seeing. And the first one that you'll see in track mode is wet. So that's designed for driving on a wet track, not intended for street use. So this is really good if you ever do take your car to the track and it's damp or wet or raining or whatever and you want to get out there. Wet mode works really awesome. It's not like a weather mode for the street. It's pretty aggressive, but it'll help you out on the track a lot. The traction control is going to step in for you a lot sooner, and the active handling will step in a lot sooner on weather mode, so on wet mode. So you definitely want to use that if you're going to get on the track and it's wet. And most people on these cars would probably sit it out if you're at a track day and it's raining or like really sloppy, but some people got to get out there. So yeah, and so then the next mode you'll see as you scroll over will be dry, performance traction dry. So active handling is still on, traction control is still on. Even though these buttons are lit up, this is what confuses people. A lot of people panic right away. You've turned everything off, you've turned everything off. It's not off, it's just letting you know that it's not the standard setting like in touring mode. It's starting to pull back. The nannies are starting to let go of the reins a little bit. They're starting to back off slowly. So this would be designed for beginner and novice drivers. This is actually a really good setting when you first get to a track. If you've never driven to it before, it doesn't matter what skill level you're at. The dry is pretty cool setting to drive it on. It'll let the car step out a little bit, the yaw a little bit, and it's going to monitor the throttle pretty heavily. If you try to really get into the power early, you'll hear that. The PTM mode, you'll start hearing it. You might hear it when you're out there on the track, that motor fluttering like it's wah. You'll hear a lot of that out here. That's when someone's really aggressive on the power and the nanny's saying, nope, not yet. And so it's basically cutting timing and spark, and the motor sounds like it's misfiring. It's does zero harm to the engine. It's designed to do that, but you'll hear it a lot. Wah. That's what we'll refer to it as PTM. He's getting into PTM. It just means that he's getting into the traction management. And then again, the active handling and the traction control are starting to back off. They're still there. Sport 1, that's what you guys will be driving in on all our track sessions. Active handling is still on, but if you saw a graph of it, this would be the wet and then the dry. It's starting to come down. It's gradually fading out in the background. They're still working for you. In Sport 1, like you might have even noticed trying to get off the line and the shifting or the braking, it'll still spin the tires. Like it's not going to cut in right away. So also the active handling part of it, the yaw, it'll let the car step out through a corner. So you just have to be mindful that it's there working for you, but it's starting to diminish. The nannies are starting to let go of you a little bit. So that's what we're in, what we'll be driving on all our track sessions. And then the next one is Sport 2. So in Sport 2, active handling is off. So all that's left is some traction control. So all that's going to control is rear wheel spin. The active handling is off. So any bit of save that you need to make if the car is moving around like this through the corner is on you. There's zero active handling. And so designed for advanced drivers, or if you drive your car on the track a lot and you start getting comfortable with it, you might want to move up to Sport 2, because if you're getting pretty aggressive and you have pretty good car control and you're down in this mode, you might know when the car's starting to step out on you. You might know what you're planning on doing, and you might go to make that adjustment and the computer makes it for you, and then there's two adjustments happening, so the car's kind of, it's confusing to you and confusing to the car too. So in Sport 2, yeah, active handling is off. And then race, active handling is off, designed for expert drivers. In race, it's almost, we've played around with it. So active handling is off. The traction control is almost all the way off. Like you have to be real aggressive on like a tight corner, just matting it when you're not ready to. And you'll cut in a little bit, you'll get that fluttering, it'll cut in a little bit. But it's almost, everything is almost off. And then what they don't show you here is, if you want to be super brave, you can put the car into track mode, and if you hold the button down for 5-6 seconds, both those lights will come on. That's everything off, all the way, 100% off. So that's how you would turn everything off.
Let's do it.
So yeah, if you're out on a track day and you see some goon who sent his car off the track already a couple times or whatever, he's like, hey, want to ride? And you hop in and he's doing this number and he's just holding the button down, you know what he's up to, yeah. So it's happened. I mean, we've seen it out here when they brought some guys from magazines, some journalists and stuff, and one guy was a pro driver. He was more of a magazine guy, and the GM people were here, and they were like, he's good, we want to put him in race mode. He knows what he's doing, we want to put him in race mode. Guy went out, both times first corner went off the track. 2 times in a row, straight off the track. You know, he was just wild.
What kind of car?
01, yeah. It was their car, so go for it, dude. If you want to keep driving it out into the rocks. Yeah, and of course, you know, oh, how old are these tires? And well, you know, the shock settings feel off. They're like the electro. I mean, they're like the best shocks you can put on a car. There's no. I mean, that's what guys would wish they had on their car, but you know. So, anyways. So are there any questions on any of that stuff? We'll back up there for a minute. Are there any questions in any of that stuff, the PTM stuff? Okay. So the next thing is launch control. So the cars do have launch control, and it is covered by warranty. That is one of the big rumors that's floating around, that GM doesn't cover it. It's totally covered under the warranty. We used to do it. We used to do a launch control session, and then it turned out that most guys would rather have a track session. And you'll see once, like later today and tomorrow, when you're driving on the track all day, 30 minutes on the track is a lot more fun than doing launch control a couple times. We would be out there just like where we were on the front straight, and then you would get to do the launch control, and you'd do it 2, 3, 4 times, and then it was just kind of like, oh, okay, well, that was so-so. But anyways, it's in your owner's manual. It's kind of hidden in there. You have to look for it. We give it directions to you at the end of the school tomorrow, but it is in there. So any 2010 or newer Camaro Corvette will do it. So in a manual transmission, first step, you have to select any PTM mode. It can be wet, race, sport, one's wet. Just select any PTM mode. Make sure the steering wheel is completely straight. It's funny, right? But there's people. I mean, we saw that a lot. So this is probably not in the owner's manual. But when we were doing the launch control thing, we would be standing a ways like we were there in the braking one. Call a guy down, and we'd see a guy. Are you ready? You ready to do your run? Okay, go ahead. And we'd see it. They'd have the steering wheel like this, straight up this way. So it would. You'd think it would be logical, but Nice. So anyways, steering wheel straight. So you put the clutch in, put it in first gear, and then the next thing you do is you romp on the gas pedal as fast as you can, all the way to the floor. It feels odd at first, but just romp on the accelerator. Press the accelerator to the floor rapidly. So you'll just romp on it. The RPMs will jump up, and the manual, it uses all the sensors. It's checking the temperature and the tire temps, but it's usually right around like 4,000 RPM. So it'll stabilize there for a minute, and then you just dump the clutch. You just dump it. If you do any slipping, it's pretty hard on it, and sometimes it'll even take it out of the launch control mode. So you just dump the clutch while holding the accelerator to the floor, dump the clutch, and hold the accelerator to the floor. Then you just shift up into second gear normally, and then it's out. The launch control is out. By that point, it's putting the power down to the pavement, so that's not much of a worry there. We'll take a look at what it looks like. It's pretty cool. The 01s launch pretty hard. So here's a video of manual. We can watch it a couple times. We only have so much room. That's not where we had the customers do it, but that's there's only room to go to about 60 there. We can look at it again. So you see the RPMs jump up really fast and they'll stabilize. They just hold right there. And then when he dumps the clutch, you can hear a little bit of that fluttering. That's the PTM it's fighting a little bit because this isn't a burnout mode. This is a launch mode. It's trying to put as much power to the pavement as it can. So it's trying to launch you and accelerate as hard as it can. So it will flutter a little bit. The PTM is fighting. We'll watch it one more time. So that's launch control in a manual. And then in an automatic, same deal, any 2010 newer Camaro Corvette. 2014 Corvette Stingray was added. So in the automatic, select drive or manual. So in a ZR1, you'll watch how fast it rips through first gear. If you're going to try it, I'd put it in drive and try it, because some people, the first time it happens, like when we did out here, car would launch and it would just rip right to the rev limiter and just sit there in the rev limiter, and the guy like fumbling around with the paddle. So just leave it in drive. Steering wheel straight. This one a little different. You have to stand on the brake pedal really, really hard. Step on the brake pedal. And then same thing with accelerator, romp on the accelerator really hard to the floor. You'll notice it if you didn't get on the brake pedal hard enough, the car will start bucking. It'll start kind of fighting, and it's not into launch control mode. So you'll notice on this one, on the automatics, the RPMs, it's not as exciting. The RPMs come up to about 1,800, somewhere around there. And the car just sort of accelerates away. But you will see how fast it rips through first gear. The automatics are, the gears are closer together because it's an 8-speed, and the manuals are 7-speed, so the gears are grouped a little bit closer together. Whereas the manual car goes about 70-something in first gear, the automatic, you'll have to shift. You'll hit rev limiter. You have to shift it like 40-something. We'll watch this. Same thing. Hold the accelerator to the floor, and then just sidestep off that brake pedal. Just right off the brake pedal. So here's what it looks like in the auto. Like these three shifts, like you can hear that one, how quickly it shifts. And this one actually in the automatic, you can hear a little bit of that PTM, that fluttering. It's fighting a little bit harder on the auto. Check it out. Once he lets off.
What's the reason why it's revving at a lower RPM?
It's revving, because the automatic transmission has a torque converter, and it's a little bit easier for it to manage that power.
Okay.
On the manual, like think about it, if you were trying to like launch your car, like if you just let the clutch out at 1,500, it would stall. Mm-hmm. So on the manual, if the RPMs aren't high enough, it'll just stall, or it'll bog out really hard. Sometimes when you read some of these things like launch control on some of these cars, they'll say, oh, it bogs out, they need to recalibrate their launch control and have the RPMs go up higher. Some cars, I mean, it screams. It's like, you're like on a Ferrari or something like that. It's just, and it'll sit there until you let go of the clutch pedal.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so that's mostly all of that, of the electronics. Were there any questions on that stuff?